So, welcome to part three of Day of the Dead, the experience. So, here we are in, where was I at? Near Monroeville, Pennsylvania, with a film that I'm supposed to be in a second scene, and a much better scene than the first one, which was the elevator. And I don't know where I'm at, and obviously they're not filming there. And a woman has now answered the phone, and she says, "Oh my gosh." She says, "Oh my gosh, this is Thomas Brown." And I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Oh, we blew it. We sent you to the wrong location. I am so sorry. Yes, we are filming today. Yes, I'll tell you how to get here." And I looked at Rick, and I had tears running down my face, and I go, we're there. We're good. So he grins and thinks, how did he pull that off? Well, I didn't pull off anything. That wonderful lady, who might as well be my second mom, saved this whole day. And I just wish I knew who she was. I'd love to just give her a gigantic hug. And anyway, they said, we sent you to the wrong location, and we are at the Wampum Industrial Storage Facility in Beaver Falls, Pennsylvania. And you are about 4 hours from us. I said, "You mean if I was in Ohio?" She goes, "No, we're in the foothills of Pennsylvania. You are on the other side. Here's the deal. Drive safely, but get here as fast as you can. I'm going to talk to George, see if we can't rearrange some scenes we're going to shoot, and we'll get to you when you get there. So good luck, and we'll talk to you, in a few hours." So I get in the car, I look at Rick, and I try to tell him the fastest version of the story imaginable. And he goes, "You mean there is a film?" And I go, "Yeah, I was right from the very beginning. They sent us to the wrong place." He goes, "Where are we going?" I go, "Beaver Falls." He goes, "Beaver Falls." Now, luckily, there was no such thing as GPS back then, or he wouldn't know we're about to take off and be gone all morning just to get there. So he took off, went through endless toll booths, and got there. And to describe the feeling is impossible as we approached the Wampum Industrial Storage Facility, because it might as well be Area 51. It is so cool. It is a mountain. I remember a giant door in the front of it. And this is, again, kind of vague. We drove up. There wasn't a lot of cars there, and they were waiting for us. I don't know if it's Felice, but they were waiting for us. Again, more apologies. And I was so happy and grateful to be there. I didn't need any apologies, but that was nice of them. And they opened the doors, and we got in. And I think it was a really big entrance door. It was like something a truck would drive through. And I remember a Jaguar being parked. It wasn't an XKE, or I would have probably drooled all over the place. It was a Mark V, I believe they call it the touring car. It might have been George's, and it was parked, and there was different cars in there. And as soon as we got in there, and I had no idea where we were and what this place was, as soon as we got in there, they literally took us and I'm a pretty big guy, and picked us up and almost dragged us into a room where there was all these barber chairs, and there was a lady. I remember her having white spiked, crazy looking hair, and I think she is deceased now. And I want to say she was foreign, like possibly European. I can't remember her name. I want to say it started with an N, Natalkia or Natasha. I don't know. Anyway, we got on the chairs, and they proceeded to turn us into zombies. And some of the things I remember is the cornflakes on the face, blow dryers, incredibly cold stuff they put in my teeth. And we were on those chairs probably half an hour each. And my heart's just racing, and I'm so grateful to actually be there. It's so surreal to think you're not going to be in the film at all. Something got screwed up either on my end or on someone else's end, and now I'm in this barber chair being, fixed up as a zombie. And I didn't even know what I looked like. I had no idea. The outfit, if I remember correctly, was slacks. It was a red pullover sweater, and then it was the white apron and the white chef's cap. So I was a chef zombie, or the baker man, as I think George would refer to me later as. And after we were done, we were taken to a room, a large room in the Wampum Industrial Storage Facility. And it's actually a room that's in the film. I mean, they utilized that place very, very well for Day of the Dead, believe me. So we went into this room, and I thought, here we go. We're going to sit down and wait. But that's okay. I'm all right with that. I remember there being a television, a 19-inch TV that was on a rollaway cart. Could have been the same deal it was in Creepshow. I'm not sure. And there was a cabinet underneath it, and there was VHS tapes. And if I recall, the film that was on was Martin. And the weird thing was, I don't remember it being in color. I think it was black and white, but again, I don't remember. Later on, there was an urban legend that there was a much longer cut of Martin that existed, and it was George's personal property and whatever. So that might have been the version that we were watching. I don't remember. So we were allowed to walk around within boundaries. So Rick and I were both really hungry. So we walked around and found what you would call a green room, which, if I remember correctly, was a hallway, and there was a big table, and I remember barrels full of ice and candy bars. There was buckets of fried chicken, there was peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and there was an endless array of donuts. And if you get to one of the earlier releases of Day of the Dead, I think it was on Anchor Bay special editions, you will see a shot of me and Rick with donut gunk all over our face, acting like we're charging the camera, because we were hamming it up and having fun. And so I started to load in the junk food: donuts, chicken, PB&J, soda. I mean, the kids I've worked with in my career would have gone insanely happy if they saw that much junk food in one place, and they probably would have had to get more of it after my guys would have eaten it, because there was so much of it. And we just filled our face full of donuts, and there was all kinds of good donuts there. Jelly donuts, filled donuts, there was just everything imaginable. And I got rather full, to say the very least. And then we walked around, took some pictures. We actually had a 35 millimeter camera, and nobody told us we couldn't use it. So we took a lot of shots, black and white shots. A lot of them appeared in various versions of Day of the Dead, either as a DVD or as a Blu-ray, from various labels. Shout Factory, I believe one of them might have been, I know it was Anchor Bay on DVD. I don't know if it's Synapse. I don't remember where they all appeared, but those pieces, those pictures appeared. And I remember us not getting any credit, or my friend Rick, who took the pictures in the first place, not getting any credit for supplying those. Because after Day of the Dead came out, they were looking for pictures that were shot on the set, so I submitted them, and again, they were used, but we were not given credit. And I really wanted my friend Rick to get credit, because he was a very good photographer, and they are nice shots. I wish I had the complete set like I used to have. I don't have them anymore. A lot of time has passed since then. So we went back to the room, and by that time, if I'm not mistaken, the VHS in there was Knight Riders. Now, this was a time when you just couldn't own that stuff. I don't believe Knight Riders was available yet that I know of on any format, and it was just VHS at the time, So we were watching Knight Riders, and all I'm thinking of is, let's just get to the scene we're going to shoot. So I think we were in there about 3 hours, and I'm pretty sure we made a couple more trips to the green room or the hallway with all the food and goodies. And we were sitting around with a lot of zombies, sitting around the tables, waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. And I remember there was a documentary crew there from New York. And at the time, I didn't know anything about Document of the Dead, which was the Dawn of the Dead documentary from Roy Frumkes, which eventually did come out. And believe it or not, I had something to do with why that documentary was eventually released, because after I had a chance to see it, I told Roy Frumkes, that, you know what? Fans would love to see this. So I was actually given the opportunity to be the conduit between Roy and whomever to get that released. And I remember going to one company, which was MPI, Maljack Productions in Chicago, and they were interested in buying it right away. And Roy very kindly told me, he said, well, now that I know this, I'm going to go ahead and get it released on my own. Thank you for your effort. And I do get a very nice credit, a thank you credit for my effort to try to get that released for the fans. So back to this. So eventually they came and got us in golf carts. And the first thing I got to see on the set of Day of the Dead was Steele put a gun in his mouth and blow his brains out. And we were in the hallway, and there was a lot of security, because there was a lot of things going on there involving pyrotechnics and explosions, explosives, whatever. And I got to see, I looked around the corner, and you could just peer into the room, and he put the gun in his mouth and he blew his brains out. And I went, I cannot believe I just saw that. Of course, there was not much in the way of audio effects, but it was so freaking real. And I just went, oh my God, Rick, did you see that? That was so incredibly cool. So of course we couldn't see, the gun box with the buttons. We couldn't see any of that. We just saw what we saw. So they cleaned up the room. We were probably out in that hallway about a half an hour, and they brought us in. They said, now, Tom, Now, at this point, I'm getting really nervous because they knew who I was. Tom, you're going to be in the front, and what we want you to do in your own zombie style. And at that time, I hadn't seen George yet, and George comes over. George, I may get misty-eyed about this, but George comes over like the friendly teddy bear, great guy that he was, and says, "I'm so sorry we sent you guys to the wrong place." And I looked at him and I just said, "George, it's cool. It's okay, man." I mean, this is my idol, and here he is apologizing to me. That's just so phenomenal. So anyway, I told you I was going to get a little emotional because I remember that just so fondly. That was a great time in my life as well. So he comes over. Anyway, he says that, and he says, "Here's what I want you to do. I'm not going to tell you how to be a zombie. You be your own zombie." So a lot of people had some really cool zombie walks. Mine was so incredibly generic and boring, but whatever. I was nervous, man. I was really nervous now. And so he says, "Just put your arms out and just walk in. And there's going to be a cart. We're going to grease it all up. And I want you to hit it and then walk to your right, and the cart will do the rest. It's going to kind of like spin across the room." In the final cut of the film, you don't see the cart spin, but you do see me coming in. And to the left of me, I remember my friend Rick was probably 2 zombies behind me. There was about, I want to say 10 zombies, and I was in the very front. And of course, I have no idea what this scene is, how it's used. I just saw a guy blow his brains out. Now, we're coming in, and of course, he's not there anymore. We're walking towards what would be him. And they then bring him in. They put him in I think what they called that. I don't remember what they called it, but it was where they would chain up zombies, corral, I guess. So they shot basically me walking through, then said, "Cut, thank you," and we were done. And I thought, oh, please tell me this is not the extent of this. I've never been so wrong at the time. But anyway, they sent us back to that room to wait and wait and wait. And I told my friend Rick, who was like looking at me, goes, "Is this what this is all about? Waiting, shooting, and waiting and shooting?" And I go, "Yep, it really is, Rick." I said, "Just trust me. This is better than the first experience I had." So we get back to that little room. We wait and wait and wait. And I think we waited 2 or 3 hours. We ate more junk food, which was which was fun. But I didn't realize how sick I was getting. I didn't realize this. And at the time, I was just having fun, and this was cool. And my nerves were starting to subside a little bit. I was starting to calm down. I was starting to feel better. I was starting to feel like, hey, man, I've got this, And just when you think you've got this, comes the next part that I'm in. So they brought us back. And again, George comes over, and now he's talking to all of us, and he says, "Okay, right, remember how you walked the first time? We're going to shoot you walking. This time Steele's going to be in the shot, and we're going to," and I didn't even know what Steele meant. It was Gary Clark, of course, the late Gary Clark. And I don't think I had any interaction with him whatsoever. He seemed like a nice guy, but I don't remember talking to him or anything else, or even knowing anything about him or who he was. And they shoot me going in from the back, towards him with my arms out. And I cringe when I look at that scene because I was so overweight. I'm not good with my body image anyway. And I just thought, oh, God, I just wish I had lost a lot of weight before then. But anyway, I go towards him, and that's it, cut. But they didn't send us back to the room. They did everything out of order. That's what they do. So then, if I remember correctly, while we waited in another room, they shot the zombie that gets shot in the head. The guy that starts to, and he kind of blows up against the wall, and then they cut in the film. They cut to us coming in. There's a woman on either side of me, I believe, and no, there's a woman to the left of me or the right of me, and then the other guy is who we called Broccoli Man, and he's to become part of a very memorable and unpleasant part of my life at that point. Which I'll get through that before I get ready to record part 4 of this. So we're back, and George is just being so friendly and so nice to everyone and me. And I remember at the time they also were touching up our skin. There was a woman that walked around. There was 2 women, one with a Polaroid camera who was constantly taking pictures, I'm sure for continuity purposes, of us. And there was another one that I'm trying to remember, was it a spray gun that shot like grayish looking paint it to any skin that was starting to become pink again. Obviously, you're supposed to be dead, so you don't have pink skin. They shot my ankles. I remember them shooting my arms, my neck. I don't remember beyond that what that was all about. And they now were going to shoot a pivotal scene, literally, where Broccoli Man, they rehearsed it once. And this is where it gets seriously painful. And if you see the film again, you'll remember this even more than you did back then. I don't mean that in an arrogant way. I mean that this will make more sense and it'll attach something to that scene that you did not know. So they rehearsed it with him being shot, but they didn't actually shoot him. They had him wired up, or they were getting ready to wire him up, and I was right next to him. And they just rehearsed it once. And then they sent us into a room to sit down. And we were right there watching Tom Savini and Gregory Nicotero, and I forget who the other people were, Tom's crew, wire this guy up to be shot. And I remember the prophylactic. I remember them filling it up with artificial blood. I also remember them putting, if I'm not mistaken, movie blood, chopped sirloin, whatever, in this prophylactic, and placing. We got to watch the entire thing being done, and that was cool. That was very cool. And they wired him up. They put the wires through his, up his pant leg and all this. And one of the more negative aspects of that scene was Richard Rubenstein and a bunch of people walking in. They were wearing furs and jackets, and to be quite frank, maybe he was in a bad mood, but Richard Rubenstein was not friendly at all, not to any of us. And I remember him looking at me and my friend Rick and saying, "What are those guys doing in here?" As if we had no right to be there. And I said to him, "Mr. Rubenstein, I recognize you. We're zombies. We're star of the film." And he didn't say nothing. He just walked away. Galen Ross was also in there, and I believe she was with Christine Forrest Romero, George's wife at the time. And there wasn't much arrogance on the set at all. If I remember right, there was no arrogance. Everybody was like real people, especially George. But all of a sudden, Richard Rubenstein comes in, and he's sort of a dick. And I was disappointed because, obviously, Richard Rubenstein is a big part of George's life and George's films. So I wanted to shake his hand and say, "Hey, man, whatever. Thank you for your part of Dawn of the Dead, Martin, whatever you were involved in back then." But he didn't even give me the opportunity. He was kind of a jerk to us. But I said what I said. He didn't argue with me. And we kept on. We sat there. So now we go back into the near the corral, which is basically Dr. Oh gosh, I'm going to forget his name. Dr. Logan. Was it Logan? Yeah, Dr. Logan's laboratory. And if I'm wrong about that, I apologize. But I think it was Dr. Logan. And of course, Howard was not there. Bub was not there at all. In fact, I think they were completely done with all the filming, and they were about to be done with Gary Clark's stuff. And I don't even remember Gary even being. I think after they did the scene where he blows his brains out, and then we shot us coming towards him, and he slumps down into the corral. I think he went back to New York. I think that was his last. I think he was done. I think he went back and got the makeup off, the famous shots of him getting the makeup out of his beard and stuff, which was which was painful. I think he had already went back to New York, if I'm not mistaken, because this was actually now late in the evening. I had no idea what time it was. I really didn't. It was late in the evening, I think, by that time. So that will end part 3. I thank you for indulging and listening, and we'll get into the meatier part, no pun intended, of my experience with Day of the Dead. Thanks for listening.